All right, everybody, welcome to Accidental CEO Podcast. This is our first guest episode. I'm so excited. I have my friend John Mansfield here with me, and I can't wait for you guys to hear about all the amazing things that he does. He is a fellow podcaster. He is a fellow photographer. He's a fellow parent. So we have lots and lots in common. Love chatting with John. So welcome, John. I'm so glad you're here with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Nada. I am very excited to be here today, and just I'm pumped. I always enjoy getting to talk with you, so this is just going to be a treat to get to talk again.
Yes, I've been a guest at John's podcast twice, which I'm very honored.
Yeah,
So
in the
I
Two
could not,
Timers Club.
yes, I could not wait to invite him to be my first guest. It was a perfect fit for my first guest.
Yeah, well, I am honored to be here and honored to be the first guest. Hopefully, this is I set a good kind of baseline for everyone else to just go above and beyond after this.
Um, I'm sure. So, John wanted to talk to you guys a little bit more about the importance of kind of knowing your numbers and understanding that in order to, just grow your business, be efficient at growing your business and all that. So we wanted to share with you guys, we first met back in Orlando back in 2020 when
Yeah.
it was my first photography conference. So it was really great. It was like an amazing conference. Let's just say the guest speakers, the keynote speakers were just amazing. It was an
It was
amazing
so
lineup.
good. I learned so
Yeah.
much from that conference, and I met so many great friends that have since gone on to do amazing things like yourself, and it's just, I don't know. I was in tears after Erica and Lanny Mann with their whole keynote at the end of the conference. I was just like, this is so good. I wasn't expecting this, but this is exactly what I needed, and it was amazing.
It was some high level stuff. So that was Creative Summit right before, literally like a month before the world tried to end on us.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we didn't get to hang out with a lot of those people for a little while, but we somehow got to stay connected and kind of fell within the same groups of photography, collaborations and things like that, and kind of stay connected, which is amazing.
Yes.
So I wanted to have you back. I know you have been growing your business. Like we've been watching each other grow, which has been fun. And you became, have a really good expertise on helping people understand, doing some coaching, helping people understand the business side of their business, which is what I love. So the first question I have here for you is, what are some of the important numbers that everyone should know when they're starting? Let's talk about from the get-go. I'm just decided I want to be a photographer. What do I need to start paying attention to?
Well, you just mentioned it. It's like the business side of your business. For a lot of us being a photographer, it's like, we got the creative eye, and we're using, I forget what side of the brain that is, left maybe. But we're using that creative side of the brain, and it's so much fun. It's artistic. We're able to do that kind of stuff, but then the analytical, numbers and, what do I need to put away for taxes and all of that kind of how to grow the business side of your business is difficult for a lot of people. And, so yeah, it's the business side for sure, and some of those numbers that are super important are like your cost of doing business, which is a lot. We can kind of maybe dip our toes into it because there's a lot of other numbers to keep track of too, and it goes very intensively into cost of doing business. And there are a lot of good calculators out there that you can get. I actually have one too, if you want to link that or whatever. It's free. Yes. Don't worry. But yeah, not just coming on here to sell stuff.
Anything that helps people make money and is free, it's a great idea. So we'll 100%. Definitely link it in the show notes for you guys.
Oh yeah. And this calculator, I will go back to anytime that I'm wanting to kind of adjust my prices or my packages or anything, because you put in all your numbers, you'll have a couple different kinds of numbers that you want to look at. Your fixed costs, which are every month, it's going to be the same. No matter how many gigs you have, if you got one, if you have 10, it's going to be the same. It's, it's rent, it's insurance, it's
Mm-hmm.
the Adobe software subscriptions, and
Right.
like all of those things. It's going to be the same. So those are the fixed ones. Those are super easy. The variable costs are a little bit more difficult because those are like, like as wedding photographers, like you've got like your welcome gifts and
Yeah.
branded boxes and USB packages and like all the things that you do for each individual client. Those are variable because if you have one client in a month, you're only doing that once. If you've got
Even that travel, depending on how
yeah,
far you're going to that
oh yeah,
client. Yeah. All
yep, travel, all the different things, wear and tear on your gear is going to be different because you're using that a lot more
Mhm.
as you have more work coming in. So having those kind of like an average of what you're expecting, and then you can divide that by 12, whatever. The calculator does that for you. Uh,
Exactly.
but yeah. That way we don't
Gives
have
us
to think about all of the
a-
numbers. But
Yeah,
like,
but it's so people hear about cost of doing business, and I feel like it's we talk about it a lot, but
mhm.
and I don't want to, like you said, we don't have to dive it in too much, but just kind of helping understand in general what that means. It's not just what you're spending and then and then how much you have to like it helps them understand just a little bit more without diving too deep into it. What does that really mean for people that are trying to understand how much to even start charging for things?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like the baseline of your cost of doing business is how much you need to make in order to keep the lights on, keep the photo galleries flowing where you can deliver things, and you're not like, oh, I forgot to pay pick time this month and now I don't have anyone to send. But like it's keeping stuff going. That's like your baseline. I remember the first time that I did it, I thought it was going to be a really huge number because it felt like I wasn't making a lot of money in my business. This is like maybe probably like year 3 or 4,
Mm-hmm.
where I had just transitioned from this being a kind of like a side hustle while I was in a corporate job to leaving my corporate 9 to 5 and doing this full time. And I was like, I just don't feel like this is making me as much money as I was thinking it would. And I went through the whole the calculator, and like my bottom line was maybe $11,000 a year, and I was like, oh, okay. Like it gave me that boost of like, oh, okay, cool. I can do less than $1,000 a month. I can make that. Don't worry about that. And then you have taxes, and you have
Mm-hmm.
your profit and also your pay that you add on there, which is also in the calculator. But like that's kind of like your baseline number to help you figure out if I book, let's say, 20 weddings a year, that number divided by 20, this is the base that I have to charge for this in order to survive. Not quite thriving yet, but like just surviving.
At least in my, yeah. So you're saying I'm not gonna just guess what my prices should be? I'm not gonna just look
Right?
at my neighbors or the people around town and then just use their numbers? Is that what you're telling
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. And that is what I was doing. That's why I wasn't making any money because I was just like, all right, Susie down the road is charging this much because she has her starting prices on her website. So I can figure this out. And I was like, all right, I'll charge like $100 less than that. And like that kind of just guessing and trying to figure
me?
out where to land is not, yeah, everyone's got a different path. We're all on different paths. Earlier you were talking about how like we are very similar in the way that like we're parents and podcasters and photographers, and like we
Yeah.
align a lot. But someone down the road like that Susie, I don't know who Susie is, but we're just going to use Susie as this analogy. um
He's always there.
she's
He's
she's
always
she's
there.
always there. There's always
Competition.
Susie. But like
He's
you
in
don't
TV.
know. Yeah, You don't know her story. You don't know, maybe she doesn't have kids. Maybe she's, 19 and single and living at home with her
Mhm.
parents, and just like, she doesn't have a lot of those expenses that you might have. So she can charge super cheap because that's it. Or,
Exactly.
or like
I
I
remember,
met, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I remember the first time I actually calculated all of that, and I was doing that as an exercise with other people in a room,
Mm-hmm.
and there were some younger photographers, single, no kids, and the difference of what our bottom line had to be and what I had to charge to make the same amount of money. And that person was, it was very different, guys. Let me tell you. It was
Yes.
like, okay, like, things are different. I have different costs that I have to tend to. It's just like putting together a budget for your household, for your day-to-day living. Like you have, the expenses that you have that are always going to be
Mm-hmm.
there. Right? They might vary a little bit, but you might have to pay either rent or your mortgage every month. You have your electricity, you have gas, that kind of stuff, and then you have your food. That might be a little bit more variable cost. Sometimes you're going to eat
Right.
out a little bit more. Sometimes you're going to be cooking at home a little bit more. And then so you have to understand that you cannot accept this job offer that somebody's giving you that's going to pay you $10 an hour, because you're not going to be able to pay your rent and buy food and buy gas to even get to work. So what kind
Oh
of
yeah.
job offer you can accept? So you have to think about along the same lines when you are putting together your photography business. And that's what the understanding the cost of doing business does for you. It helps you understand how much you need to be charging for your services and your products in order to be able to just pay your expenses and have some money left for your fun money, for your investment money, whatever it is you want to do with that extra money. It's just something we all should and need to have.
Yes.
So are you going to take that job? What is that not paying you enough? So that's the cost of doing business for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was like you said, that $10 an hour. I was in my 9 to 5 job before photography. I was making, I think, 850 an hour. And then my first wedding that I booked was a 10-hour day for $200. And I was like, that's $20 an hour. This is amazing. And like, that kind of like, it seems really big. It seems like a big number. And it seems like you might be making money because you're like, oh no, I can do this for this
Yeah.
amount, and I can kind of undercut what everyone else is charging right now and like grow my business. But you might be like me, where the first few years, like I couldn't pay myself a paycheck for 2 years because I just didn't have it built into my pricing. And and there was no profit. It was just the money was going directly into the
Mhm.
business, and there was no
Yeah.
profit because I hadn't set all this out, and I was just guessing at numbers. And I think that's what gets us a lot of times when we're first starting off, is just like, I don't know,
Mhm.
here, I'll charge
That sounds
1200
great.
for this wedding. I don't know, this is probably right.
Yeah. Well, two things from that. First, you mentioned, oh, I was working a 10-hour wedding and they were paying me $200. So that's $20 an hour. That's the very big lie that we all tell ourselves in the beginning.
Yep.
You're working way beyond those 10 hours when you have a client. You're working, there's hours that go into it before, with all the communication back and forth, all the planning, putting a timeline together. And then there's those 10 hours. And then there's all the hours afterwards that you spend editing those pictures, uploading those pictures, culling, then communicating back with your clients. So those $200 get stretched into probably more than 20 hours at the end of the day. So you're back at your less than 10 hour a day,
Yeah.
kind of $10 an hour kind of pay. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a big lie that I feel like in the photography world we tell ourselves a lot in the beginning. Like we just kind of grab that total and divide it between whatever hours we're actually pushing the button on the
Oh yeah.
camera. That's not realistic at all.
Right. Because
And
like,
then
yeah, because like whenever
yeah,
you're not in the industry, you don't know. Like a lot of, like our clients are like, well, how can I justify paying you this much money for only 8 hours of work. And it's like, it is not only 8 hours of work. And whenever you first get into the business, you might look like I did and be like, oh yeah, $20 an hour. All right. And so my 9 to 5 job, I had to keep like a detailed spreadsheet of the like clocking in and out of different jobs that I was working on. So I brought that
Mhm.
into my photography business, and I wanted to see how much time I'm actually spending on different things. Because I quickly learned just the hours that I'm behind the camera is not the hours that I'm actually getting paid for. And I
Exactly.
calculated, all the things that you just listed off, and like email communications. And I used to meet up with all of my clients for coffee before any wedding or any photo shoot, and
Mhm.
like all of the travel and the preparation and everything that goes into running a business, including like marketing and like posting on social media and like all of those things
Mhm.
too. And I had calculated that at my price then, which I thought was pretty reasonable, I was making a little bit over $4 an hour for the amount of work that I was spending, or the amount of hours that I was like actually spending in the business. And that was a wake up call of like, oh, I need to restructure my prices. I need to think about this more, because this is way less than I was making at my 9 to 5,
Yeah.
and it wasn't sustainable.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think the other thing that you mentioned that is important to talk about a little bit is, that the guessing of like, oh, this sounds like a good price in the
Hmm.
beginning. It comes a lot from what we think we would pay, right? Like
Oh yeah,
I would be comfortable with paying $200 for a session, so that should be a good price to charge people, and that is a to me it's a hole that we get ourselves in very often. Again, in the beginning, is projecting our own values and beliefs into our clients. Is called, spending your clients money for them. So you should never be using yourself as a
yep.
as a basis of what you should charge. Again,
Oh,
that's why these
100%.
calculations exist, because we sometimes we are not our own ideal client, guys. Let's just be realistic. I'm married to somebody who I love and is very supportive, and loves what I do and helps me with everything, but he would not ever hire me to be he would not hire me. He just would not be able to get over seeing that he would not see the value. It's just not how he thinks. So
Yeah,
sometimes you have to separate how you think and your own values from that price. So
that is a huge mindset shift that it took
mhm.
me a long time, because I was stuck. I couldn't justify charging more than $2,000 for a wedding, because I personally, at 24 when I got married, wouldn't have spent more than 2,000 on a wedding photographer, because I was like, well, our budget was like this much, and that would be way too much. And like, even though I had that value of, I want good photos, I want that like documentary style and everything, I couldn't go. I wasn't going to go out there and hire someone for 10 grand, because
Yeah.
that wasn't me. That wasn't one. I just didn't have that budget, even though I valued it. And sometimes like your ideal clients don't have the budget, and that's okay. And yeah, that was hard, because I was like, no, I want to serve this group. I want to serve people like me who like they value this but just can't afford it. And that was
Mhm.
just, it was digging me deeper and deeper to where I was like minuscule profits, and any like hiccup in the business was just like, oh well, now all of my savings is gone,
Yeah.
because I dropped my 70 to 200 at this wedding, and I had to replace it. And that was a couple grand, and now I don't have any savings. Okay. And like that whole
Wedding.
thing, it was is a hard mindset to get around. But once you can kind of figure out like, maybe I'm not my ideal client, maybe I'm not the
Mhm.
person that I need to be marketing to, that I need to be speaking to, and you can really identify who your target client is, and then speak to them, and then see like, oh, they would be able to afford more, and they want to, uh,
Yeah.
because that was a big thing for me, was like, I remember the first time that I went over $1,000 for a wedding, and I had just changed my prices, and I ran into this bride at a venue where I had accidentally left one of my batteries plugged in during the reception. And I went back like the following Monday to go retrieve it, and she was out there on a tour, and the venue owner was like, "Oh yeah, this is John. He just shot a wedding out here on Saturday," and like we got to talking, and she was like, "Oh, what are your prices?" And I was like, um 1,200. And she was like, "Oh, that's great." And like that mindset, like you said, like don't spend your client's money. I was spending my client's money, and I was saying like no one's gonna spend over $1,000 for a wedding photographer.
Yeah.
And she was just like, "Oh yeah, no,
Easy.
immediately, where do I sign? Send me over a contract."
This is cheap. Let's do it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And the more you're into the business and you start understanding that mindset, and it's amazing how it changes your own perception of in perspective on pricing and how much you start paying for things.
Yes.
Definitely change. So it's a whole new mindset. Tell me a little bit about what are some of the numbers that drive decisions in your business today?
Mm. Some of the numbers that drive my decisions are my leads. I'd keep a very close eye on like how many leads, how many inquiries are coming in. Um,
Mhm.
as you're in business for a few years, using like a good CRM that tracks those things too, um,
Yeah.
it it's easy to look and see like, oh, in February, um, leads kind of boost up because a lot of people got engaged over the holidays. They've taken a little time to maybe book a venue or something, and now they're looking for a photographer. and
Right.
and seeing those trends are really helpful. But also like looking at those numbers and seeing like how many leads did I get in this week, how many is normal for a normal week in March or whatever. It helps to determine like uh, where I need to spend my marketing hours, and when I need to
Mhm.
maybe spend a little bit more time networking or posting on social media, or I need to update my blog now, and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When I see those lulls in inquiries, it gives me that kind of like alarm bell of, oh hey, we need to continue to do more things. We can't just like I think sometimes we get like really really excited. I know I do, where I'm just like just writing all of the blogs, and I'm posting online. I'm just like
Yeah.
super consistent with all the things, and I'm just marketing in all the places, and then just kind of get burnt out because I'm doing so much all the
Mhm.
time that I'm like,
Mhm.
all right. And like the leads are already starting to come in. So I feel like everything is good. And then I'll just like sit back and just kind of coast for a little bit. But because I'm coasting now, it's like in a few months, those leads are going to be a little bit less, which is a hard tightrope to walk.
Ebb and flow, right? Of
Yeah, yeah.
those
And
leaders.
there's going
Yeah.
to be, yeah, that ebb and flow, like a natural ebb and flow for sure in your business. And as wedding photographers, it's very seasonal. I think
Mhm.
less for us because we're in the South. In
Right.
Florida and Texas, we don't have like the Minnesota type where it's like for 6 months out of the year you just don't photograph anything because it's
Stay
covered in
inside.
snow. Yeah. Uh, but yeah, those drive my business. That helps me to really see, um, and I also ask on my contact form how they heard of me, or like where they heard
Mhm.
me, so I can see. Oh, I'm really showing up well on Google, so my my SEO must be good. My blogs must be
Yep.
doing great, um, and sometimes like I'll look at those numbers too and see, oh, okay, social media is really good. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing on social media, and
Mhm.
and just kind of keep an eye on where they're coming into your business from, is a really great indicator of some places that, SEO, like search engine, is my number one. That's where most people come to me from, even above like vendor referrals. And
Yeah.
that's what I put most of my effort into, because I'm like, this is working. So I'm just going to keep working
Keep
on
on
it,
working.
keep the wheels turning, bring them in.
And again, that's where it becomes a little overwhelming for people sometimes that are very creative minded,
Mm-hmm.
is to start looking at, whenever you talk about data analysis, it's like, ah, panic. Where do I look? Where do I do? But it's so important to make sure that you're looking at those data points and using them to drive your decisions in your business. So if
Yeah.
you are looking at how many inquiries you're getting a month and how much, not only how many are coming in, but how much are you converting off of those inquiries coming in, you need to be understanding those numbers in order to make a decision. Do I need to go look for more leads? Or do I need to focus on maybe getting a different kind of client? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting all these clients, but they're just not, not my ideal clients. They're not connecting with my pricing and with the things that I'm offering. They're not interested in some of the things that I'm offering. So start looking at that data, start collecting that data. I realized that, so I use Honeybook. And so that's my CRA, my client relations, management system. And we'll link it in the show notes for you guys as well, in there. But I've noticed that, even talking to other people that use different CRMs, there's not one that really collects all the kind of data that I want to look at. I'm very data
Right.
driven. So I've created my own spreadsheet of everything that I want to know when a client comes in, all the way to the end of, do we book it, we not book it. I have data on, did I do their consultation in person or did I do it via Zoom? Is there a better conversion rate when I do it in person than when I do it via Zoom? So all of those things are important, because if it is true that if you sit face to face with me, I have a higher chance to convert, I'm going to make a little bit more of an effort to make sure that we are face to face when we're
Yes.
doing that consultation. So
Oh
start
yeah.
thinking about, yeah, building that structure to look at the data on your business. Um, Again, guys, it's important to be able to continue to take the pictures that you love, to start paying attention at those things like the numbers and the business side of your business. So,
Yeah. And then not only like having those data points, but also looking at them, because
mhm,
that was something I was collecting. On my contact form, I had all these questions that I really didn't need on there, and it was just like, how
mhm,
did y'all meet, or what's an ideal date night? And I was like, I don't need this, because I also wasn't speaking to it whenever I would respond to their inquiry. I would just go into my normal spiel, and
mhm,
that wasn't helpful. But now I use those. But like, it's the same thing. If you're asking people, how did you find me? How did you hear about me? But then all
mhm,
that's doing is just like sitting in your inbox, sitting in your CRM. It's just like, it's useless data that's just there. If you're not actually gathering it and then looking at it, uh, to be able to do something, it's not helpful. So yeah, I got so many spreadsheets, of all different things. It's probably a problem, uh, but
yeah,
um, but like, as you were talking, it reminded me of a couple years ago. I was just, bookings were not converting. I was getting plenty of leads. That was not the issue. It wasn't like, getting my name out there. I was getting the leads, but I was just getting ghosted all the time. And I was getting, it was just like not converting. And it would just, I didn't really know what was going on. And like that kind of stuff too, is those are numbers like that conversion rate. You want to look at that and just be like, ooh, my conversion rate is down. Like, what's going on? And it took me a while, but I realized that I had recently restructured my prices, and I kind of made them a little bit too complex. And I had like a bunch
mhm,
of stuff in there, and like I threw in like photo credits and stuff, which makes sense to us photographers. But I got asked all the time, like, what's a photo credit? What does that mean? I'm like, or printing credits. I had to have printing credits in there. And they're like, what's a printing
which
credit? And I was like, oh, it's just money that, you're you can use for, printing in the shop. And they're like, oh, okay. And like, it wasn't something that they were really wanting at the booking time. Some people would ask like, does this come with prints? And be like, oh yeah, you got, this amount of printing credits.
Not thinking that far ahead. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which is a great way to, upsell and continue to serve as you're nurturing your clients later.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole nother thing. But like, I had made things so complex and just hard to understand because I wanted to serve everything all at once. And people were just like, ooh, this is like a 5-course meal all coming at the same time. And I don't know what to do with all of this. And they would just, it's like that analysis paralysis of, there's too much for me to even look at here. I'm just going to leave. I'm sorry. I can't choose anything. And that they were just ghosting me. And it was like, coupled with that, and also I wasn't sending quotes. I would just send them my prices and be like, all right, just let me know which one you like, and then I can send over a quote. And like leaving the ball in their court instead of saying, hey, whenever we were on this call, we talked about this one. I went ahead and put together that quote for you, which I love. I think HoneyBook does this, where you can send them all of that, and then they can choose which one, and then it allows you to like keep the ball in your court, where you're like, okay, now all you have to do, you don't have to come back to me and be like, okay, we like this, go ahead and send this over. It takes more and more of those friction points away to where they can just do whatever they want, and then you just get the notification, little cha-ching on your app, and then it's just like, oh cool, hey, they booked me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
100%. Making things simple and easy for your clients, it's a huge when it comes to converting. Think of your own experiences when you're purchasing things, and how do you feel when there's so many hoops to jump through, versus when it's very simple and easy. I can just do this, I can press this one button, I can move forward when I'm ready. So think of your own experiences when it comes to the buying process, and do some consultation. There's coaches out there. John and I coach people all the time in their business. Use some mentoring, some coaching, but use your friends too, your friends and family. You can show them your collection and say, is there anything here that doesn't make sense to you? Because they're not photographers. They're going to read things very differently than the way we read things. And that print credit might mean something to us that we're like, yeah, of course, that's great. Why would you not want that?
Yeah.
And then your cousin will be like, what is a print credit? Why would I want to do that when I'm booking you for my wedding? So, just make sure you run things by other people and get that feedback is very important, and keeping it simple is a huge game changer when it comes to decision making to your clients.
Yes. Yeah. I love that, asking your friends and family, like, especially like pick someone who's not super tech savvy. I love doing this whenever I like update my website. I'm just like, all right, grandparents, can you navigate my website? Because if someone who's not like super tech literate can navigate your website, then you're golden. It's good. But if you're just like, hey, other industry friend, other photographer, like if I sent my website to you and just like, Nada, check this out. Like, I mean, you're a coach, so like you'll analyze it and everything. But like, as someone else in the industry, it's very easy to just be like, oh no, this is like, some of the industry jargon that we use, the words that maybe don't make a ton of sense to non-photographers. They're just like, what's a second shooter? I don't understand what a second shooter is. What's the point of that? Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, I should probably call that a second photographer and not just a second shooter.
Exactly. Tell me a little bit about when is a good time to increase your prices. When do you know it's a good time to increase your prices? Let's take them through that thought process.
Yeah. I like to raise my prices like kind of incrementally, just like little baby steps. I find that works a lot better than giant steps where it's just like, okay, I've been at the same price for 3 years and now I'm just going to double it. And it's kind of like a shock kind of thing. But like,
Mhm.
it's a great time to increase your prices when you have increased your experience. I like to kind of revisit after every 5 to 10 weddings now. At the beginning, probably after every 5, because I was like, okay, this is a big difference shooting. I've photographed 10 weddings. Now I've photographed
Mhm.
15. I've learned so much more at
Yeah.
15. And now it's like, I don't know. Someone asked me recently how many weddings. I was like, I used to keep track of that. And like
Yeah,
once
no
I
more.
hit 250, I was like, I don't know. It's over 250.
Yeah, a lot of weddings.
It's a lot of weddings.
Yeah.
It's so, but like the difference between 250 and 260 is like there's not a lot more that I'm learning.
Mhm.
So like as you're increasing your experience, the more photo shoots that you're on, the better that you're able to produce the photos that you have in your mind through your camera, through the settings, and
Mhm.
through your editing. Increasing there, increasing with education. When you've invested money into coaching, into a workshop, into going to a conference and like learning stuff and implementing it into your business, that
Mhm.
is more value that you are providing your clients. And also increasing whenever you provide a better client experience. If you're like, you maybe, for a while I was just like sending postcards as a welcome gift of just like hey, you're one of my couples, so excited to be working with you. And now I have a whole like welcome box that I send and a
Yeah.
guide that's like nearly 200 or 130 pages long, which is just, I keep adding to it and it may be too long, but but like there's,
Really.
yeah, it's pretty much a magazine. And like those kind of things that it increases the value of my client experience, so that way
Mhm.
you can increase the value, or the cost of your entire
Yeah.
experience that you're providing.
Yeah. So when you invest in yourself, when there's some education growth in
Mm-hmm.
there, experience growth, when you invested in new equipment, I think is a good time too. Because
Oh
again,
yeah.
you're the end result, right, of that client's experience is going to be better. So you're increasing your client's experience quality. All of those are probably good. But I think the other thing to consider too is how often are you hearing yes or no, right? Like how is that price
Uh-huh.
conversation going with your current clients? So if you talk to 10 clients and 9 of them booked, you're most likely too cheap.
Yes. Oh yeah. I used to love whenever I
What?
would have someone, like I'd meet with them and they'd be like, "Oh wow, this is a deal. Yeah, we're ready to book." I was like, "Yeah, that's right. I'm a deal." And then I realized, "Oh wait, that's not a good
Mhm.
thing. Like I don't need to be the like Walmart supercenter of just like rolling back my prices all the time." Like if, like you said, if you're getting a lot of yeses all the time, that's,
Mhm.
I mean, that's great because you're filling your calendar, but that also means that like your demand is going up, so people are wanting you can increase your prices. And those like little baby steps of like maybe $300 here, maybe $500 here, kind of depends on where you're starting from, because 500 is a big jump from 1,000 but not so much from 3,000. And
Yeah.
like those little baby steps of uh, increasing your prices, that's going to drop the conversion rate of people who are booking with you. But you also don't want a 90% conversion rate, because I mean, one, you could just like overbook yourself. I did a year where I photographed 42 weddings, and I know for some people that's a slow year, but for me, with 3 kids, I think I had the third kid by then. Maybe we only had two, but like at least pregnant with the third. So it was a lot. And that was too much. And I was like, okay, I've got to
Yeah.
narrow the amount of weddings that I can take. So that also increased my price, because I still had the same amount of
Mm.
people wanting to book me, but now instead of 40 something weddings, it was like 25. So there were fewer slots to put them in.
Simple math. You can work less hours and make the same amount of money if you just
Exactly.
increase your prices. So, and
Yeah.
I think another thing that people forget often is the fact that you don't have to be announcing every time you're changing your prices.
Please don't.
There's no need to go on Instagram and be like, I'm raising my prices.
Yeah.
So, you can experiment with that. You can say, hey, maybe I just did this bridal show and I have 15 consultations scheduled. I'm going to change my pricing for those 15 and see what happens. Maybe I'm going to go up a few $100s in each one of my packages, or maybe I'm going to change a little bit of what I'm offering. And you just document that you did that for those specific consultations and you see what happens. And you're like, oh, I actually increased my prices and nobody looked at me like I had 3 heads and that I was asking for something crazy. Maybe that's where I need to be for my next few weddings. So you can experiment, or maybe you increase your prices and man, you did 10 consultations and you didn't convert any of them. That maybe it's time to take a look again, and it's okay to come down again and take a step back and reassess, and change that price, and keep investigating, keep experimenting. Nobody really knows what's happening. I think we have clients sometimes that refers to other clients, and is 100% fine to say, hey, when I work with Joe, my prices were different. Things have changed since then. But rarely, I've never had somebody that confronted me. I had siblings that I've shot, their weddings, and they got different prices. And I've never had anybody really ask, why so-and-so paid this much and I'm paying this much. So rarely it's going to happen, guys, which is what most people are afraid of. Having that conversation and having to justify. So
I was afraid of that. And then a few years ago, I had photographed a wedding, I don't know, maybe 2016 or so. And a bridesmaid in that wedding ended up getting engaged years later, still followed me on Instagram, and then reached out and was like, hey, I know that you're probably, like, your prices have changed from what you charged 5 years ago when you photographed my friend's wedding. But I'm really interested. And like, I would have assumed she'd be like, okay, you charged X amount for my friend, so that's what you're still charging, right? But like, we sometimes, just like what you were saying about, don't spend your client's money. Don't put a no in their mouth because you think that it's probably going to be a no. Like, allow them to say yes, and don't just assume that people are going to be like, oh, well, you once charged this, or you did this 30% discount thing for Black Friday a couple years ago, so can't I get that deal? And it's like, don't limit what your clients want to spend and invest with you just because you think, ooh, they might not want to. Let them say that they don't want to.
and the category you're in, the less you're going to hear about discounts. Like, people are going to stop asking about all these things the higher your price range is. So just keep that in mind too.
Yes.
So I have a fun question for you now.
Okay, cool. I like those.
You're an amateur chef. I want to know. Tell me about that. Tell me, what is your favorite dish to cook?
I mean, recently I've been cooking a lot of like heavy savory meals because it's been colder, it's winter-ish time. So like a good shepherd's pie is good. I've been making those a lot. Cajun chicken pasta is just kind of like a fave recently. That's just like where like you're cooking the chicken in the broth and the heavy cream, and it's just like getting all the flavors all through the meat, and the pasta is cooked in the broth where it's not just like separately in just salted water. But yeah, I don't know. I typically I've been wanting to bake more because I'm not much of a baker. My wife is the baker. She loves to bake and has like her staples. Yeah, it's a whole different thing. I love like cooking savory things. So wanna branch out. I have a few bakers that I follow on TikTok that I'm just like, all right, I could make homemade cinnamon rolls. I think I could do that.
I struggle with baking because it's a very exact science. You have to follow a recipe, right? It's
Yes.
chemistry, basically.
Yes. Oh
Baking
yeah.
is chemistry. And cooking is there's more freedom into cooking. Like
Yeah.
there might be a recipe you're following, but there might be just something that you know how to put together based on your knowledge of cooking. So I like the freedom of cooking when it comes to not having to follow a recipe exactly.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah. Cooking, I'm just like sprinkling seasonings all over. I'm just like, this is probably good. That's enough time.
good.
Yeah. And like baking, it's like, okay, I can't swap out baking powder for baking soda. Those do different things. And I have by accident, and it did not turn out good.
Nope. No. Well, thank you so much, John, for being with me today and sharing some of the great, just resources and tips on looking at your numbers and how important that is. Tell us where people can find you online and just learn a little bit more from you. And maybe soon in the future we'll have some recipes in there too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us where to find you.
Maybe that's what I need to do is start like photographing my meals that I
Right,
make.
food photography.
Hey, I'm also a brand photographer, so like that could boost my food portfolio. Um yeah, where can people find me? Instagram. I hang out there a lot. All Heart Photo is my photography page. That's where I
Mhm.
am primarily. The podcast Instagram is wit.pod, WITT.pod. And I'm on there. That's where I do more of the like business educational type stuff. The All Heart Photo is more photography, lifestyle. You'll see us, playing out in the rain with my kids and stuff like that there. But yeah, and then also the podcast is Wisdom in the Tangents, and probably should have done better at preparing and like pulled up your name or uh, your episode numbers, but yeah, Nada's been on
No,
there twice, so definitely go check out those. I recently learned on Spotify you can like search in a podcast
yeah.
for people, so yeah, you can just search in there, just Nada, and then she'll pop up twice.
Ghost
Um,
Potter.
but
But
yeah,
thank you
those are the
so
places you can find me. Yeah.
Love it. Thanks. Thank you for coming along and sharing some laughs and some great tips. We appreciate you. We're going to put all the resources for you guys in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.
Cool. Thanks so much for having me. Bye.